Hey, the son of the road haunts. And as you know, the past few years, Spirit has been facing a little bit of backlash. Because people are saying, props are too low quality, not scary, just not good anymore. And I've made a few videos. I've made some video. Okay, I've made a shit ton of videos about this. And I mentioned it in a lot of other videos. But, as somebody who's talked about this and held this opinion for a very long time, I must say, and I don't want to jinx it because we were talking about this with 2022, but I think this is the year that Spirit Halloween is finally listening. And here's why I think this. You see, we haven't seen the props yet, but we can tell a little bit by their descriptions and names. And what I will say is that, sure, maybe names aren't indicative of something. For example, back then, Tombstone Terror could have sounded really cool, and then we saw what it was, which is not very good, let's just say that. But usually, the really bad props, you can somehow just tell. Something about their names is just a little bit off. Like Johnny Punk, Mr. Punchy, Young Crouchy, you can always just tell. Something about their names is just too weird. But that goes the same with the cool props. The cool props have names that just stick out as like, oh, this is gonna be good. For example, Mr. Dark, Harvester of Souls, The Collector, or Nightmare Harvester. I just noticed two of those are Harvesters. But if we're going off of the names, we do have some really cool and honestly creepy names. For example, The Black Heart, Deathstalker, Hellspawn. There are just quite a few names here that stick out as, cool. Like, these have to be attached to props that are just awesome. Now, some of them may not be so awesome. For example, I've heard Eternal Rest is made by the same company as Tombstone Terror, which maybe this will be their glow-up. Maybe they'll just continue the trend, which wouldn't be very good. Or Dagger Mike, which literally might be Johnny Punk 2. But you can sort of tell just by the names that some of these props are going to be really good. Plus, if we look at the returning props from last year and years before, the props that returned have been very creepy. Like Bog Zombie, not the scariest thing ever, but he's a good level of scary. He's a zombie, and, classic. Lord Raven, good character, and, really, he talks about stripping your flesh off the bone. The Widow is apparently returning in stores, which, you've seen The Widow. And so all of these returning props, as well as Creepy Rising Doll and Grave Watcher, are creepy. There aren't many just talky, goofy props. And so if those sold well, so much so that Spirit's bringing them back, what are the new ones gonna be? Plus, with things like demons. Have you ever seen a really kid-friendly demon? Maybe one or two. But most of the time, they, speak of hell, the underworld. And plus, if we look at Hellspawn's description, for example, he's literally mentioned as Satan's right-hand man. Not the king of the underworld, not, the devil, Satan. Literal Satan. Which is a very good sign, because that means Spirit's getting a little more on the, edgy, quote-unquote, side. And so I think this year will be treated to some actually scary props. Even if you look at the licensed stuff, Leatherface, especially in the Pretty Woman mask, is literally a serial killer wearing faces. That's a cannibal. You can't get around that. He will be wearing faces, obviously. And so that's a very good sign. But just in general, I think this year will genuinely give us the chills. Now, I know that sounds bad. I've seen a lot of talk about people thinking this year's prices are insane. Granted, Slim and Leatherface, I don't know what Slim could do that could make him worth $400. That's a little crazy. Especially that it's gonna be made by Party Time. I don't know what he could do that would be worth $400. But what I will say, I feel like a lot of people are seeing this specific price point, $400 for one prop, and thinking, oh, so all the prices are bad. But when you look at some of the other ones, what I'm going to use as a baseline for a not great price is Lord Raven. Because back in this could easily be a $200 prop. You know, and his animation is like, he has 3 animations, which is like, okay, but his clothing is like pretty cheap looking, and he's just, you know, I don't think he's worth $300 really. But let's use this guy as a baseline. You see, things like Darling Dolly are 7 feet tall, and somehow $20 less than Lord Raven. And I can only assume that most of the props this year are going to be pretty well animated. So that means that a 7-foot prop, with honestly, I'm guessing the same amount of animation as Lord Raven, is going to be less money than him. That's a pretty good sign. Or like, let's think Desmodus. He's 6 feet tall, and will probably be animated as well. He's $230. Compared to Lord Raven, again, that is like a pretty good price. Creepy Rising Doll, I was expecting to be $400. Creepy Rising Doll is the same price it was in 2015, which is $230. That's still like pretty good. The Blackheart's 6.6 feet tall, already taller than Lord Raven. And we don't know what the Blackheart will be. Maybe it's just a possessed woman. Maybe it's a demon. But I'm thinking it could be both. Like either some sort of Ophelia type thing, or I've seen someone on the Spirit Wiki suggest maybe a demon carrying the woman and maybe she's possessed or something. 6.6 feet tall, $300. Same price as Lord Raven, but already more height on that. And finally, to wrap this, you know, price point compared to Lord Raven up, Deathstalker. We don't know what Deathstalker will do, but he is 7.3 feet tall, which is like more than a foot taller than Lord Raven. And again, I can only assume he's going to be animated. And get this. He's made by the same company as 2 Scoops, which means the quality might be a little questionable. But also remember 2 Scoops' price? They were like $240 for that. And so I think that is a damn good sign for the prices. Of course, as I've said, Slim, I don't think can really be justified. Depending on what he does, how he looks, Slim's price is definitely very steep. But the rest of the prices seem pretty okay in my opinion. Of course, this is an unpopular opinion, but hey, we'll just have to see what they do. Okay, this is another one that may sound bad, but and it's more of a theory really, but let me explain this. Clowns the past few years have been a little oversaturated. You know, let's be honest. We all know this. But here's the thing. From what the descriptions and stuff we've gotten of the most recent ones, they do seem to be in a little bit more of an original direction. For example, Stilts could be considered a clown. They'll probably make him a clown. But really, he's more of a circus performer. Because you see, he's a clown on stilts, which is like pretty original. And I mean, there's the Lowe's one. But I don't know if that's really on stilts, if I'm honest. But this guy's like 8 feet tall, pretty much. And it also mentions how he's a juggler. So those are 2 things we never see in props that are going to be combined. And so that's pretty good. Heckled may not be the best. He may just be a clown with balloons. But it does mention how he sells poison balloons. So maybe another toxic clown type thing. Maybe that could be a little interesting. Poor George as well might be bloody. Because it says how he was cut in half. Hopefully it's not like they cut his legs off. Because that would be a little, you know, straight up just Lucky Bottoms again. Maybe it'll be a headbanger reskin. I've heard that suggested in one of my live streams. That could be interesting. Or maybe he'll be cut in half lengthwise, Terrifier style, which would be really cool. But the thing is, you know, we're getting a lot of clowns, and I've counted 6. And what I will say, people are like, no, it's not a carnival, it's a graveyard. Are you crazy? And yes, it is a graveyard. But I have 2 things to suggest it might be a carnival. You see, for a graveyard, we have a lot of fitting props. Like mourners, demons, you know, skeletons, maybe like a vampire too, do fit in a graveyard, definitely. And so people have been chastising Spirit for this for like a while now, about their props not fitting the themes. But for a graveyard, like demons, mourners, yada yada, ghosts, skeletons, they do fit a graveyard. But then you have these 6 clowns. And those don't fit in a graveyard as well. Now, a single clown in a graveyard, sure, that's pretty creepy. But 6 of them in a graveyard or haunted mansion, that's a little bit confusing. Just saying. Like, I don't know about that. But here's the thing. People have been begging Spirit for a circus theme for quite a few years at this point. Right? And for their 40th anniversary, where they're trying to please the fans, it would make sense to do a circus to please us. And with 6 clowns, and by the way, Darling Dolly and Desmodus, I think, could fit in a circus. You see, Darling Dolly is like a toy, so kid-related. That could sort of fit in a circus. And Desmodus could fit in a freak show or something. And that gives us about 8 or 9 props that could fit in a circus theme. So one of two things is going to happen. A, they stuff this up and just throw them in a graveyard, and it's going to be very tacky. Or B, we're going to have 2, or I'm going to say it, maybe even 3 separate themes. We'll have a graveyard, obviously. When I say we might get a carnival, I'm not saying we're not getting a graveyard. I think that's stupid. But I'm suggesting maybe the themes will be separate again, to go back to their roots, quote-unquote. And the back theme will be a carnival or circus. And yeah, that sounds crazy, but you gotta admit, these pieces of evidence is, like, sort of damning. I don't know why this is necessarily how Spirit's gonna be good, but because we've asked for one for so long, and these clowns could be original, I think it's a good sign. You know, while you may not agree with me with some points, like the circus, or decent pricing, I think we can all agree that at least the marketing's better. And I think we can all agree that this year will hopefully shape up to be, maybe, one of the best years they've ever had. Like and subscribe if you're new. Tell me what you think of this whole thing in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Farewell.